Buenas noches, konbanwa, and hello, good evening. My name is Elsa Higashide Kudo. Thank you so much for coming to the presentation of my father's book, Mis Tres Patrias, which was originally published in Japanese as Namida no Adios. The University of Washington Press published the English version, which allowed me and my siblings, extended family, and friends to read his story. I always hoped for a Spanish version because Peru played such a big role in his life. Although it took 30 years, I am so grateful that the Association of Peruvian Japanese, APJ, has published the Spanish version. I thank the team at APJ, led by Mrs. Johanna Puget and my daughter Tammy, for working on this project. About my parents. My father was born in a remote farming village in Hokkaido, Japan, where his daily life was a struggle. On many days, he had a single meal of miso soup and pickled vegetables. When he was 18, he left for Tokyo and worked multiple jobs while attending night school to get his degree in architecture. As a professional architect, during the Depression, even his larger projects often went unpaid. And so he set his sights on working abroad. At 21, he emigrated to Peru in the hopes of building a new life as an architect. My mother, Angelica Yoshinaga, was born in Peru. My grandparents emigrated from Kyushu, Japan, to Cañete. They owned a sundries shop where they also sold fresh Japanese noodles that Grandpa made and homemade chichas. Once in Peru, my father learned one could not practice without a degree from a Peruvian university. So he worked multiple jobs until he was asked to be a teacher at the Japanese school in Cañete. There he met and married my mother. They moved to Ica, started their family, and opened 2 stores eventually. And it was called Bienvenida, which sold clothing, fabrics, toys, cosmetics, and so on. We lived in the back of the store with my grandparents, young auntie, house staff, and store clerks. My life in Peru. I would like to describe my life in Ica as idyllic. I was the firstborn child of 8, 5 of whom were born in Peru too. And I have many memories of our family there. I remember colorful parades when the circus came to town. And they would march down the street wearing funny shoes, long, like 3 times the size of regular, and faces painted in such comical ways. We often spent weekends picnicking at Wakachina, wading in the green water, running and sliding down the sandy hills. When my father had time in the store, my father taught us math, reading Spanish and Japanese at a young age, and always brought us books when he went to Lima for big shopping. After I was born, my parents were busy growing their businesses and their family. In December 1941, my father was very surprised and almost proud to find his name in the newspaper on the blacklist, because he was a nobody, he thought, nothing like the other distinguished men on the list. In early 1942, he was notified that he would be deported to Japan. He successfully evaded initial attempts to arrest him, but realizing my mother needed help with a family and businesses, he built a space under the floorboards to hide when detectives came looking for him. My memory of this, I remember almost clearly the underground space. A wooden board covered the opening, and when it was removed, you could smell the damp earth. It was big enough to place a small folding cot and a chair. After a year without visits from detectives, my father spent more time out of the hole. One day, when my mother was pregnant with her 5th child, the Ica police came to our door at supper time and told my father he was under arrest by order of the United States. He was friends with these officers and told them he was not a criminal and refused to take the 3+ hour drive to Lima in the dirty paddy wagon. He hired a taxi instead. I remember the entire household surrounding the taxi, and everyone was crying. The young clerk who had opened the door to the officers bawled uncontrollably. Not knowing what lay ahead for him, Father asked to stop at a photography studio so he could take a picture, possibly his last one, and have it sent to my mother. As an adult, I realized what a treasure this must have been to my mother, since she also had no idea if she would ever see him again. To this day, that photo is my most favorite of my father, because from any angle, he looks to me like he was looking right at me. In the meantime, we received a letter from Father telling us to board the next ship to the United States so we could be together, come what may. Before we left Peru, my mother also took us to a studio to take a last photo of our family. By then, we were just happy to be able to be together with Dad. This is the picture. My aunt and grandparents told me later that I was always a happy and talkative child, until the day my father was arrested. Then they said I grew very quiet and never smiled. 6 months later, we were finally reunited at the Texas internment camp in the US. I was about 7. Mis Tres Patrias is my father's story, from his youth in Japan to becoming a businessman and father in Peru, and his struggles through the war and settlement in the United States, which of course in time he grew to consider it as his third homeland. If my father was still with us, he would have been so very proud and happy that my Tres Patrias is now available in Espanol, Spanish. Thank you.